Okay, let's be real. We are absolutely drowning in data. I mean, every single click, every purchase, every single thing we do creates this massive digital footprint. So the big question is, how do we turn all of that noise into something we can actually use? Well, today, we're going to tackle that head-on by breaking down one of the most important models in information science, the DIKW hierarchy. Let's get into it.
You know, the poet T.S. Eliot asked this question decades ago, and honestly, it's never been more relevant. It just perfectly sums up the problem, right? It's not about getting more data. It's about the struggle to climb from raw facts to real, genuine understanding. So we're going to keep this question in mind as we climb this pyramid together.
So here's our game plan. We'll start at the very bottom, at the base of the pyramid, with data. Then we'll take that first step up to information. From there, we'll talk about the huge leap to knowledge, look at some of the real-world things that get in our way, and finally, we'll reach for the top, the search for wisdom.
All right, so every good pyramid needs a solid foundation, right? For us, that foundation is built from the most basic, most fundamental unit of our digital world. Before there's any meaning, before there's any understanding, there's just data. This is ground zero.
And if you look at the origin of the word, it tells you everything you need to know. Datum, in Latin, literally means something given. And that's exactly what data is. It's just a collection of given facts, of signals, of symbols. You know, think of a long list of numbers in a spreadsheet or readings from a sensor. They exist, sure, but by themselves, they don't have any meaning or context at all.
Think of data like individual raindrops. Each drop is a single, separate fact. It exists, you can measure it, but on its own, it's completely out of context. It's static, it's raw. Just one raindrop doesn't tell you if a storm is coming. It's really just a huge collection of disconnected points that are waiting for someone or something to give them meaning.
And that brings us to our first really crucial step up the pyramid. How do you take those millions and millions of separate raindrops and actually understand the weather? Well, you have to transform that raw data into something more. You have to create information.
And again, let's look at the word itself. Information comes from the Latin informare, which means to give form to. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're taking that raw data and processing it. We start connecting the dots, organizing it, structuring it. We start asking questions like who, what, when, and where. And all of a sudden, these raw facts start to tell a story.
This is a fantastic analogy for this transformation. Think about data as just a pile of raw cotton. It has potential, sure, but as it is, it's not very useful. The process of spinning that cotton into yarn, that's like creating information. We've organized the raw material into a structured, usable form. Now, it's not the final piece of cloth yet, but it's a really critical step to get there.
So here's the key. Information is not the final destination. The economist Fritz Machlup made this brilliant distinction. He described information as a flow, like a constant river of messages, often temporary, often broken up. Knowledge, on the other hand, he called a stock. So if information is the river, knowledge is the reservoir that it fills. The flow is constantly adding to the stock, building this deep, coherent, and lasting body of understanding. So let's move up to that next level and see how this all builds. This next step, from that flowing river of information to the deep reservoir of knowledge, this is where things get really interesting. Because this is the leap that can't be completely automated. It actually requires the most complex processor we know of, the human mind. The Greek root for knowledge, Gnosis, is all about recognition. And see, this isn't just about organizing facts anymore. It's about truly understanding and recognizing the patterns within those facts. It's about taking information and mixing it with our own experiences, with our own reasoning, to create something totally new, an internal, personal understanding.
Now, for all the information science students out there, you'll recognize this classic equation from Brooks. And yeah, it looks a little complex, but the idea behind it is actually super intuitive. Think about how you understand a topic. That's your personal knowledge structure, or KS. When you get a new piece of information, that's the delta I. It doesn't just get tacked on. It actually changes and reshapes your entire understanding. So this equation is really just a formal way of saying that learning isn't just about collecting facts. It's about restructuring what you already know.
And this right here is why that human element is so important. We have to understand the difference between two types of knowledge. Explicit knowledge is the stuff you can write down, right? The facts in a textbook, the information in this explainer. But tacit knowledge,
That's where the magic happens. It's that gut feeling, that intuitive understanding you only get from experience. I mean, you can read a book on how to ride a bike. That's explicit knowledge. But you don't actually know how to ride a bike until that tacit, intuitive feeling clicks in your brain.
The sociologist Daniel Bell just nailed it with this quote. He said, "Knowledge is an organized set of statements presenting a reasoned judgment. It's not just a bigger pile of information. It's a structured, coherent framework that's built on judgment and reason. It's the woven cloth from our analogy, something with real purpose and structure."
Okay, so it would be really nice if this whole journey up the pyramid was a smooth and easy climb. But let's be honest. In the real world, the flow from data to knowledge is full of friction. There are tons of barriers that can distort the signal, slow it down, or just stop it in its tracks. So that brings us to a crucial question. What gets in the way? What are these obstacles that prevent a nice, clean transfer of understanding? Why doesn't a fact recorded over here always translate into knowledge over there?
So let's break down some of these barriers. You've got what information theorists call communication noise, and that's not just static on a phone line. We're talking about technical jargon that nobody understands, or simple language differences. Then you have system delays, things that just slow everything down. And what about media problems? There are so many sources out there, it's hard to know what to trust. And then you get into the really messy stuff, socio-economic friction, like propaganda, or even political instability. All of these things can distort or completely block the flow of information.
But even with all of those obstacles, we still try to get to the top of the pyramid. We've gone from data to information to knowledge. But there's one last kind of aspirational level we have to talk about, and that is the summit, the pursuit of wisdom.
See, wisdom is really the ultimate goal here. If knowledge is about understanding the how, like how a climate model works, wisdom is about applying that knowledge to make good decisions. It requires judgment, insight, compassion. It's knowing why that model is important, what its limits are, and whether we should actually build a seawall based on its predictions. It's that crucial difference between knowing how to do something and knowing if you should.
And this brings us right back to where we started. The full quote from T.S. Eliot actually hits every single stage of our pyramid. His words are like this timeless warning. At every step up, we risk losing something essential. You can have tons of data, but no information. You can have information, but no real knowledge. And you can even have knowledge without the wisdom to use it well.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. In our world today, which is just overflowing with raw data, the challenge isn't getting access to it. The challenge is the ascent. This pyramid of understanding gives us a kind of map, but we're the ones who have to do the climbing. So the question for all of us is, how do we consciously, and with purpose, make that journey from the overwhelming noise of data to the clarity of wisdom?